Welcome back everyone. May I now request Professor K.R. Parthasarathy, Indian Statistical Institute, Delhi, Professor B.K. Sinha, Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata, Professor B.L.S. Prakash Rao from C.R. Rao Advanced Institute of Mathematics, Statistics and Computer Science, Hyderabad, Professor Jeffrey Hunter, Auckland University of Technology, Auckland, Professor Steve Haslett, Massey University, New Zealand, Professor Yimin Wei, Fudan University, China, Professor S.K. Jain, Ohio University, USA, and Professor Bapat to join in the group meeting. I also request Professor K. Manjunath Prasad to chair this session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Raksha. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Professor Balkrishnan couldn't join us, so I am occupying his chair now and organizing this particular meeting. So this is how the meeting goes on. I'll request some of you to come forward and have your thoughts on Rao and his work and whatever you like to say. And we'll also, if we get to some time, we can request from audience to raise their hands and join us. I hope Professor Parthasarathy, B.K. Sinha, B.L.S.P. Rao, Jeff Hunter, Steve Haslett, Iminvi and Jain are with us. Professor Parthasarathy, can I request you to join us and speak a few words to start with?
Thank you very much for your kind invitation to be present on this happy occasion of the C.R. Rao 100th birthday centenary celebrations by ALAPS at Manipal. Since my vision is poor, I wrote whatever I wanted to speak and requested Professor Manjunath to read out my lecture on this occasion. I joined the Indian Statistical Institute as a student in the year 1956, which is also the Silver Jubilee year of the Indian Statistical Institute. And it was here I met Professor C.R. Rao, my guru, and I have written a short note on the impressions that he made upon me as a student at the Research and Training School of the Indian Statistical Institute.
Okay.
Huh?
You want to say something?
No, it is okay. I'll wait when.
Okay, I'll get back to you again. May I request Professor B.K. Sinha to join and speak a few words?
Good morning, everybody. This is Vikas Sinha from Calcutta. Most of my academic life I have spent at ISI Calcutta. I started in 1979 as an associate professor and I retired in 2011. But much before that, I knew Professor Rao on several occasions. I worked in Calcutta University Department of Statistics as a doctoral student. I worked in the area of optimal designs, and Professor C.R. Rao was one of my external examiners. That was in 1971. So he got to know me through my thesis. Then in 1974, while Professor Rao was at ISI Calcutta, and I was a faculty in Calcutta University Department of Statistics, Professor Rao called me one day at ISI and he told me to accept a visiting position in one university in Brazil. It was meant to be a faculty development program, and he thought I would be good to take up the challenge and go there, learn the Portuguese language, and go for developing the faculty development program. That's what I did. I went in 75 and I was there for 4 years. And in 1979, Dr. Rao recommended me for a faculty position at ISI Calcutta. That's how I joined ISI in 1979. Then again in 1985, it was Professor Rao who recommended me for a full professor position in ISI Calcutta. Lastly, I met Professor Rao in 2016 during one of my many visits to USA. In 2016 summer, I made it a point to meet and greet Professor Rao personally at his residence. At that time, he was staying in a place near Buffalo, New York. He was staying with his daughter Teja. Professor and Mrs. Rao, they were staying. So I made it a point to go there. I have a twin brother, Bimal Sinha, who is also a statistician, and he is in Maryland, Baltimore. So I checked with Bimal, me and Bimal, we went there and met Professor Rao and spent one whole day with him and his wife, and it was a very good experience for us. We have been in correspondence with Professor Rao, and in 2015, there was a Handbook of Statistics special volume in the area of randomized response techniques, and that was co-edited by Professor Rao. He was at the helm of affairs, even at that age, and then we interacted while editing that book and while working on that book. So I have a very fond memory of Professor Rao. This year, on the 10th of September, we tried to organize one live entertainment for him, and I took part in that along with many of his admirers and students. So we wish Professor, collectively from all of us, I wish Professor Rao a very peaceful life now. For giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Professor Sinha. Professor Prakash Rao, please, next few minutes.
I met Professor C.R. Rao in the year 1960. I was 18 years old, and after my master's in mathematics, I went to join Indian Statistical Institute, and that was the first time I met him. And he was my teacher in the first MSTAT program, which was ISI started as Institute of National Importance. And then he taught us what's then called the small sample theory, which is probably now called linear models. So I learned basic statistics theory from him. And later, even though I was not his PhD student, I was abroad, I went and I worked under Herman Rubin. But after I returned, I joined Indian Statistical Institute after some time in IIT Kanpur. And I was his colleague in 76 to 79. There are a few areas which are common to what I work with, and especially the characterization problems and statistical inference. And from the fundamental things he taught us, or taught me in particular, so I was able to work with him in some areas, even though we didn't have any joint papers, but it turned out all roads lead to Rome. So everything goes back to Professor Rao if it is statistics. So I had a fortunate some inequalities which I worked with him later, generalizing some of his results. And in fact, I will present later in my talk this morning. So that's the area where I don't work in matrix theory per se, but I worked on some statistical inequalities which he worked on, later somebody else has generalized, and that's what I'm going to present. But as a person, of course, I met Professor Rao several times. He is my guru, and in fact, At present, I am INSA's senior scientist at the institute he established in Hyderabad. You see, he was a visionary. So nowadays, everybody talks about big data and data science, and Professor Rao knew it in 2004 itself. And then that's why he established an institute where mathematics, statistics, and computer science are important. And so this, even though before the general public thought about it, he thought about it, much earlier, and established this institute. And right now, I am attached to that institute, and I have been working in the area of inference for stochastic processes for all these years. And of course, Professor Rao visited the CRO Institute, which we call like that, for several years till about 2012. And in fact, there was an international conference we conducted during the year 2013, which was the International Statistical Year. And Professor Rao was present at that time, but due to his old age, he couldn't visit this institute after that. But of course, as was expected, probably some of you may know or may not know, he even published a paper last year along with one of his students in the Proceedings National Academy of Sciences. So he's still doing his research in one way or the other, and he's still active. And he's active, if I give him an email message, next morning I get a reply from him. So he's that active even at the age of 100. So I wish, we're all celebrating his birth centenary year. I wish him long life, and may God bless him. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to participate in this conference in honor of him. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rao. Just 2 days back, we got a message that he will try to join us. So we have kept a felicitation function in this evening. It is somewhat late at 9 o'clock. Please, you all join us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Professor Hunter, now it is the time for you, please.
Well, thank you, Prasad. It's wonderful to be part of this meeting. It's late afternoon here in New Zealand, and I will try and set my alarm to get up early in the morning to hear the felicitations to Professor Rao. But I owe a lot to Professor Rao in my research. I work in the area of applied probability. And I will at length tomorrow in my invited talk how his work has impacted on my research. I had the advantage of studying for a PhD at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. And one of the advantages of American PhD program is that students get exposed to a variety of areas in statistics. Even though I knew I was going to do research in stochastic processes, I taught an analysis of variance and design of experiments. And I was exposed to his work on generalized inverses, taught by Professor Indra Chakravarti, who did his PhD under Professor Rao, using notes prepared by Professor Raj Chandra Bose, who also was in India and University of Calcutta and taught the first course, or a course in statistics that Professor Rao did as a student. So I won't go into details about the work that I've done, but I'm one of the few that have actually picked up the idea of generalized inverses and used them to solve systems of linear equations in a variety of stochastic models. And I've written a number of papers in this area, and his work has really been the mainstay of my research. So for that, I'd like to express my appreciation to him. I had the opportunity to host him in New Zealand in 2005, and he hosted me at Penn State in 2006 at a workshop. Had the opportunity to meet him personally again there. He's a great man. He's a wonderful mathematician and statistician, and I wish him well. I sincerely hope that his health maintains in full health, and we will have more of his research activities as he continues to do research wonderful to be in that situation. So thank you for this opportunity. I'll try and join you again later in your evening, early in my morning, to participate again.
Thank you, Professor Enter. Professor Haslett, you are among the people who practice statistics. Please, it is your time.
Well, you might think perhaps that my interest in linear algebra is largely theoretical, and I think I'm honoured to be involved in this conference. And but my link with C.R. Rao is perhaps more tenuous than most of you. I mean, I don't think I even met him until 2014. I think it was a little before the International Workshop on Matrices and Statistics. So maybe I've got the year completely wrong, but Jeff can tell me.
2005, New Zealand.
It was 2005. Okay, I was looking through my emails, and there seemed to be something rather strange about them. So I first met C.R. Rao in 2004 because I was at the University of Maryland and he was giving a talk, and I was able to introduce myself. And largely because Jeff was organising the conference in Auckland, I was able to talk to him a little bit about that and how the organisation was going from his point of view. But my connection with him went back much further than that, because I first became interested in this linear algebra material perhaps when I was first at university, even as an undergraduate, but it followed on from then when I was doing my PhD, which was on repeated time series, which you or sample surveys and repeated time series, which you might think has got very little to do with linear models, but turns out to have a great deal to do with linear models. And that was my first introduction. So I, as I'll explain in my talk, I used to travel with a number of books because PDF copies weren't available. So I was certainly very aware of who C.R. Rao was long before I met him. I think I'll stop at that point. I think others have got much more direct connections, have got additional things to say, but I'm, as I say, I'm honoured to have been invited to be part of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Haslett. I was thinking that you seniors will be occupying more time and kept a minimum number of people in this group, but you are all within a limited time and finished. So unfortunately, Professor Iminvi did not join us, if I'm correct, and Professor Jain also couldn't join, I think. Anyway, hope that Professor Jain will be meeting in the evening again. And we can give some opportunity from the audience if they can raise their hand, and if they want to speak anything about Rao, they can join for a few minutes. If anybody is coming up, please.
Dr. Prasad, can I continue to tell a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. This is the time for you.
Yeah, so this is in relation with the C.R. Rao Institute in Hyderabad. As you know, the full name is Advanced Institute for Mathematics, Statistics and Computer Science. So when it was established, for the first 5 years, I was a member of the Policy Planning and Implementation Committee. So every year I used to go there to take a stock. There was a committee, of course. I was a member of that committee to take a stock of what is going on, the kind of research, the kind of project, faculty, etc., etc. So during some of my visits, I would see Professor Rao. He was coming from Penn State all the way over to Hyderabad. During the winter time in USA, he would come, he would make it a point to come over to Hyderabad and visit the center. So it was really surprising to see that Professor Rao is in the office at 9 o'clock in the morning, and he is there till 5 o'clock in the evening, doing proofreading, knocking at others' doors, and in his characteristic style, smiling and asking, "Oh, so what are you doing? Let's go and talk," like that. That was Professor Rao extremely energetic, systematic, and so revealing, so energizing that it is really good to see Professor Rao around. It was really a very pleasant experience. I'm talking about 2005, 6, 7, like that. Anyway.
Anybody else like to add words? Please, Professor
Just-
Enter.
Just one comment. I'm sorry, I had my times wrong. I am speaking again later your morning at 11:45, and I'm involved in another group meeting tomorrow morning. Yes, I'll be talking about C.R. Rao's impact on my research later on this morning for your time.
Good.
Okay. Anybody else like to add any few words, please? Otherwise, we'll wind up this session. Thank you all, professors.
Thank you.
We'll go for next scientific session of
Thank you.
from others.
It is very nice to see Professor Parthasarathi and Professor Prakash Rao.
Yes.
Virtually meeting each other after a long time.
Yeah, that's why we wanted to have a group meeting of this kind.
Yes, it's great. It's great.
Okay, we'll meet again during the.
Yes.
Thank you, Professor Prasad, for chairing the session. Next, we will have invited talk session at 10:15. We will meet at 10:15.